cool. Well, it's
Yeah.
great to meet you. I'm looking forward
Nice
to
to meet you
delving.
too.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to delving into your work. And to begin that process, I want to ask you, 4 years ago, we were all wrapping our heads around this pandemic. How long is it going to last? What is it going to do? And now that we're kind of in this quote unquote post-pandemic era, how did you survive it? How did you get through it?
Mm. What a great question. I've been thinking about it a lot lately because everything's starting to feel more semi-normal.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I really leaned into the basics. I focused a lot on my health. And so being a person with multiple chronic health issues, I was scared because people were dying. And instead of letting fear paralyze me, I focused on, well, how do we build greater health? So we bought trainers to put our bicycles in the basement. So even during the winter and that first year in the pandemic, we could still ride our bikes, air quotes. And we were everyone was cooking all their own meals at the beginning, but we tried to make it fun. So we were trying new recipes and trying to plate it beautifully. And my husband did this thing where he started a music listening night once a week. He's also, or he was, he's not anymore, but he was a radio DJ
Okay.
and passionate about jazz and world music. And so he would have a weekly listening night online, and
Mhm.
all of our friends would gather and listen to music. So we really leaned into those basic things that give us joy and health physically, mentally, spiritually. I deepened my spiritual practice. I really leaned into that too. So a lot of different aspects of that.
So you're a writer, but you're also a wellness coach. But to get to the
Mhm.
essence of what you do on a daily basis, I'm going to put you in front of a bunch of third graders at career day, and one of the kids says, "Hey, what do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
Oh, well, that's great. I'm thinking of my bestie who I just hung out with yesterday, who's now 12, but how he would feel. Like I'm trying to imagine what he would think. I think I would ask them, what's your favorite thing to do with your hands? And I think they'd probably say, I love to draw, I love to paint, I love to play with Play-Doh, I love to do Legos. And then I would say, well, I help adults who've forgotten how to do that stuff get comfortable doing that kind of stuff again.
Yeah,
Because when we're creative, when we use our hands, when we make things, we feel better. And
yeah.
so I like to help people feel better by reconnecting with what is fun to make.
So, what did you want to be in the third grade? What was your dream?
Oh gosh, I wanted to be a writer and I became a writer.
There you go.
It's like, it wasn't a super straight line, but I mean, I knew right away that I loved telling stories. I loved writing. I learned how to type when I was very young. I wrote my first novella between the ages of 11 and 13. I mean, I wanted to be that person who communicated stories. And then later in life, I became a journalist, and that was in part because I love other people's stories and I wanted to help tell their stories, empower them to find a voice to tell their own stories.
What was your favorite book growing up?
Oh my gosh, I can't.
Or one that was seminal in your
Yeah,
development?
yeah. Well, a few books are coming to mind. I loved those Sweet Valley High books when I was in late elementary school, junior high school,
Yeah,
stories about these twins having adventures, like the idea of a good twin and a bad twin, putting big air quotes around that,
yeah.
and kind of watching how they move through the world. That was fascinating to me. I loved reading encyclopedias.
Nice.
Such a nerd. And I loved the novels of Kurt Vonnegut and
Yeah.
Tom Robbins. I love this giant exploratory, just really diving into the weirdness and exploring it and being excited to see what would come out of that.
Yeah, that was my vibe too. Yeah, I came to reading late. My first
Oh
book
yeah.
was Steinbeck's Grapes of Wrath, and then it just opened it up, and I got into
Yeah.
the whole beat thing with Kerouac and all those cats. So that was
Oh
kind of my
yeah.
my backdrop. But I remember the first time I got a computer, I went to a Best Buy, first credit card, and I got a Packard Bell, and they
Uh-huh.
had a digital encyclopedia, and I totally went crazy. I was like, "Oh my!" It was pre-internet. All of this stuff
Yeah.
is moving. There's multimedia. It was wonderful. I loved it. you
Yeah, it
know?
just opens up the whole world. Like I remember going through the card catalog and the library and just diving deep and just being curious. And I
Yeah,
think that it's such an essential skill for a journalist, such an essential skill for a coach to just embrace that curiosity and be excited to learn about people and all the things that they do.
absolutely, absolutely. So, who's been a hero for you in your life?
Oh my gosh. In a lot of ways, my husband has been a hero for me. He's my second husband. Sometimes I joke he's my current husband, but for real, he's the one and he's my guy. We're there. We're there forever. Um he I was getting out of my first marriage and I started to get to know my husband Joe so much better, and he was the first person in my I'm gonna get really emotional. Um, he was the first person in my life who I felt like just deeply accepted me fully for who I was.
Yeah,
We started a relationship. I was getting through a messy divorce. I have multiple chronic illnesses. I was broke. I was a freelance writer right after the Great Recession, and I was struggling. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm into that. That's hot. I want that." So he's a kind of guy who is so open-hearted with everyone he meets. And I grew up in such a tumultuous, gnarly situation. And when he and I got together, I was still a very angry person because of all that. And I got to be embraced by this person who was so accepting and warm-hearted and loving. And it taught me a different way of being. And it brought me so much peace. And now I've been able to manifest that for myself a lot more and help share that with other people.
yeah.
So yeah, I would say, and the other one is Bjork. I love her. She's so weird. Her
I do
music is
too.
wild. Oh yeah.
I so check this out. Do you like Sigur Rós too?
I do.
Okay, from Iceland. So
Yeah.
there's this, so you'll dig this. I can just tell your flavor. You'd be into this. Have you seen that show that Rainn Wilson from The Office did about the pursuit of happiness?
I have not seen
Uh,
it. It's on my list.
okay,
Okay.
listen. This is the cool thing about it. He goes to like 5 or 6 places on the planet to find out who's the happiest. Some of the
Okay.
happiest people in the world are in Iceland. So
Oh,
he's there, and it's
yeah.
like all like they there's a level of acumen with them that they've accumulated because of their weather. They can't rely
Hmm.
on it, and
Hmm.
everything's beautiful. Everywhere you turn is like
Yeah.
breathtaking. So you get an
Wow.
insight into this land that brought them. But you know the thing that's weird about Bjork, and I've always been a fan of hers too,
Yeah.
is that one movie that she won the Oscar for, she said she was never going to act again because it was
Hmm.
so hard. She didn't.
Hmm.
And that was a long
Hmm.
time ago.
That was a really long time ago, and that movie wrecked me. Just
Oh my
wrecked
God,
me.
that thing was
Yeah.
crazy.
But the her commitment to her art and
Oh,
her like absolute fearlessness about trying things
uh-huh,
and her passion for collaboration with
uh-huh.
people. You know, she doesn't appear to have a giant ego that keeps her from she collaborates with tiny artists. It
Yeah,
doesn't She just seems to move in a different spiritual plane.
uh-huh.
And so I really sometimes when I am really struggling, I think, well, what would Bjork do?
Yeah,
And I don't usually do everything she would do, but I try to embody that embrace of weird and adventures and that adventurous nature, you know?
I'll tell you what Bjork would do. Bjork would kick ass. That's all she would.
I know, it's true. She would get so strange and she would hug everyone and she
Uh-huh.
would dance on a table
Yep.
and she would wear a crazy tablecloth as a dress. And I mean, she would just get crazy. And
She'd
like,
do it.
it's funny, you know, when you asked about the pandemic, and I mean, I think there was some of that energy in what my husband Joe and I were trying to do too. It was like listen to music and eat fun food and dance in the kitchen and, you know, wear the cute clothes even though we were stuck inside and just try to find that joy and
Yeah.
try to find that like exuberance, you know?
Yeah, absolutely. So what is your motivation? You obviously have
Mm,
chronic pains,
mhm,
and you're trying to evolve as a human, and you're also helping others get
mm,
to a better wellness place. What is that ultimate motivator to get up every day to do that collectively?
mm. What a great question. Yeah. Well, I think it goes back to a couple things. One, my childhood and recognizing that I experienced repeated trauma and that as I've healed from that, I've built a lot of resilience. And luckily, I think was born with a lot of innate resilience too. But knowing that I can teach people some of those skills and do it in a fun way, wrap it in a really fun wrapper, but teach them those skills that empower them to, like Bjork would, kick ass in their
Yeah,
life.
yeah,
That is so important to me. So I'll give you an example. I won't give any identifying details because my
sure,
clients are, very privacy is super important. But
totally.
I have a client with chronic illness, and they were struggling with medication um, availability, let's say. And they just did not know how to advocate for themselves. And in a 20-minute conversation, I was able to guide that person to some skills to advocate for themselves. And within 2 hours after our call, they had solved the problem. And so instead of losing access to medication they depend on, going through withdrawal, having to stop work, they just solved it. It was done. They had their medication. They also had an appointment with a doctor. They had an empowering conversation. And that can be life changing for those of us with chronic illness. Losing access to the daily medications we rely on can really disable us in such a severe way. So, if I can have a conversation like that even once in my career, I feel like I've done something really powerful
Yeah.
because then that individual, they're going to go and live a really incredible life and they're going to teach that skill to someone else. And that means that we're all empowered with more resilience and the kind of tools we need to advocate for ourselves. The other thing that motivates me is it's just fun. It's just fun to hang out with interesting, creative people or people who aspire to be creative and to coach them through the deep questions that get them feeling more a sense of ownership of their life, a sense of agency that they can build a life that's going to be really beautiful.
So speaking of healing and getting to that creative place, obviously music plays a big part
Mhm.
in what we've talked about so far. What's been the best concert you ever saw? Most transformative
Oh,
concert you ever saw?
oh man, that's hard, Joe.
Or just pluck one. I'm
Okay,
sure you've seen a lot.
I've got 2.
Okay.
One was I saw Prince at Park Place in Chicago, right in front, like literally right in front.
Oh,
Um, and he was freaking amazing. I've never seen I'm getting chills thinking about it right now. The power packed into that tiny frame
man.
was, oh, just life-changing. Like, if I could bottle that. Anyway, and then
Yeah.
the other one, and actually similar, a lot of power packed into a tiny frame, Sharon Jones and the Dap Kings.
Oh, wow.
Just,
Yeah.
woo,
Oh, yeah.
powerful, powerful. But both of them are gone from this plane, but we still have their music, but it's both of them too early. But I mean, just 2 incredible musicians, again, like Bjork, generous, collaborative, powerful, adventurous, willing to break out of the mold, like just do everything unexpected. I guess you're probably picking up on a theme in my life.
Yeah. No, no, no. I dig it. I went to a show one time. I think it was it Anthony Wellington? It was a bass player that did work with Prince.
Okay.
And he said he was hanging out and he sees this figure coming up from the hall in like high heels, this small
Oh,
figure. And he was like, comes up and basically he said, this was the sexiest motherfucker he's ever seen in heels in his life. And
to
he's like,
quote one of,
I'm a guy that's not like that, but when Prince came up and
yeah,
he looked like that, he just threw it out there. And
yeah,
I remember in Kansas City, he came and he played at a place called it was Kemper Arena. It was down by the river.
okay.
And there was a place, a blues club called the Grand Emporium, like old historic place with all the old playbills on the wall. Just you
Oh,
could
yeah.
feel it in the air.
Yeah.
And he came up there after the show. They closed the doors and said, "We're selling 150, 200 tickets, whatever, for a private engagement." And Prince played in that place and just totally rocked it. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah,
So,
seeing him in a small venue is so incredible.
yeah.
How about you? What's one of your favorite concerts that you've been to?
When I was a kid, one of one of my favorite moments that kicked off my concert career was my dad was a car salesman and won tickets for the Michael Jackson Victory Tour at Arrowhead Stadium.
Come
Oh
on.
my God. So it took like, he was like 45 minutes to an hour late. But that
Uh-huh.
was at a time where when he came up out of the ground, he came up out of a little hole and that glove came up and there was the brightest light in the world and all of those rhinestones were blinding
Oh,
us.
yeah.
But it was like a Beatles show. Girls were fainting, people were freaking out. It was crazy. And then of course after that I saw Motley Crue, Theater of Pain, all of those rock
Oh, yeah.
things. So
Mhm.
throughout my life, I mean, one of the coolest shows I ever saw, funny enough, now that I'm thinking about it more, I saw the Eels at a place called the Bottleneck in Lawrence, which is a hip
Oh,
little
wow.
college town by KU.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
And, you know, Easy E was like, no smoking, was laying it out for everybody. Everybody was cool. And he must have come down for like three or four encores. In fact, Ben Folds too
Wow.
came down and Ben Folds
Cool.
on his fourth encore came down and did Video Killed a Radio Star in Japanese. It was
Oh my
wild.
gosh.
It,
Wow.
but that was Ben, man. He was just, yeah.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Yeah, I
we
love
could
it.
go.
Well, I mean, music clearly plays a big part in your life too, so I love knowing some of your formative moments.
Yeah. Well, and Chicago's such a I love Chicago,
Yeah.
and has such a quaint, wonderful like jazz town. Like Bobby Broom's up
Yeah.
there playing.
Mhm.
Bon Freeman was from there's so
Mhm.
many cats that I love that come from Chicago that remind me of Kansas City. There's a real
Oh,
homespun local vibe, and they all look out for each other. They're
yeah.
all very welcoming, and they really all kind of have the backbone of what they do is the blues, you know.
Yeah, that's right. It's in everything here. I
Yeah.
think, yeah, my husband's going to a concert tonight with Nicole Mitchell. She plays the flute
Wow,
and a
yeah,
couple
Nicole's
other
great.
people. Yeah, she's so incredible. So we were listening to her last night while we were driving my nephew home, and he's going to, I think, maybe a few shows this week with different people. He still likes to get out to as many shows as
Yeah,
he can. So I am an early to bed girl. It's
yeah, I
part of
get
how I
it.
manage my health. So I'm like, enjoy.
Yeah, I got remarried in 2019, right before the world
Oh, wow.
closed down. And my wife, she loves Prince. Like I'm gonna tell her this
Oh, yeah.
story. And she's just gonna be envious. But I've taken her to a lot of jazz shows. She never really
Oh,
got
yeah.
into it. So I get, passes and I go and we actually last week went to a rehearsal for Bobby Watson and the great Deborah Brown, a local singer
Mm.
who's got international flair. And
Mhm.
it was at a high school with the Kansas City Jazz Orchestra. That was awesome. I mean,
Wow.
they had their pencils out and writing their notes down, and it was really cool. So
That's so cool.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
it's
I
fun.
love it.
Yeah. So let me ask you this. Of all of the things that you've done and accomplished in your life, what are you the proudest of?
Mm. I mean, honestly, surviving,
Yeah,
and I know that I had such a rocky, wild upbringing that when I first started going to therapy in my, like, mid-20s, it was right after I got diagnosed with a bunch of different chronic health issues. I was going to a rehabilitation hospital, and therapy, like, cognitive behavioral therapy was part of my treatment. And my therapist said, "You know, we like to study people like you because you've beaten the odds already that you're
yeah,
here. Like, you've defied what we expect from people who've grown up in your circumstances, and because we like to find out, like, why, like, how do you have that resilience, what got you through, and because we want to pass that on to other people. And I'm 51 now, so I mean, this is 27, 26, 27 years later. I'm still having to do work to keep myself as strong as possible. It's not like I just did it and I was done. Um, but surviving. And then I guess I want to add on top of that, as I look out to my backyard and I see bird feeders and a garden that I've planted, and I see art on the walls in my house, and I think about my incredible husband and friends who are going to come over this weekend. It's like not just surviving, but really thriving,
Yeah.
really flourishing, finding a way to create a really beautiful life, not at all like what I expected when I was
Yeah.
younger,
Yeah.
not even
I get it.
close, right? But making it through. And then I so I don't, it's not like a tangible thing, you
I get
know.
it.
I've also written a couple books, and I mean that's incredibly hard
Oh my.
work.
Yeah.
Uh, you know, so publishing books is like a no mean feat, but yeah, really, really surviving and flourishing. That's, I would say.
So, that I'm at 51 too, and
Oh,
I find comfort in the older age now. It's still weird to me that the youngers look at me and they're like, "You're the old guy," and all of that. I just don't
yeah.
feel like that, but I think there's something really good about the Benjamin Buttons idea of that you can kind of look back because you see the youth getting ready to totally walk into the manhole with no cover on it.
Yes.
And you wanna say don't, and they're gonna get upset, but then
Yeah.
it's like, "Go ahead, all right? Because you're gonna have to find your way out and mend, but go ahead."
Yes. I mean, I did some real boneheaded stuff when I was younger. I'm
Yeah,
sure I still will, but
right.
I did some stuff, man, like relationships, nightclubs that I danced at too late on
Yeah,
tables, you know, just all kinds of shenanigans. Keg stands in college,
yeah.
like ridiculousness, right? But yeah, I there's a comfort in um you know what it is? It's like I've hit a real deep acceptance
Mhm.
of myself and my imperfectness.
Yep,
My body is deeply imperfect. My habits, my way of being, I'm not I have not achieved maximum potential. Like I see people online saying like, "Oh, you'll be, you know, perfectly happy and you'll have all," and it's like, "No, I like being a little messy. I
yeah.
think it really works for me."
W
And when I'm coaching clients, they're not coming to me because I have a perfect life and they want that. They're coming to me because they can relate to someone who looks like them, acts like them,
Mhm.
struggles like them, but still is joyful and creative and fun and playful.
Yep.
To find that balance, it requires a kind of acceptance. Like I know other people, in particular, I'm thinking of a few women who are really struggling with the wrinkles and the stray hair on the chin and the chub and whatever. And I'm just like, you know what? I ain't got time for that.
Yeah.
There's so many more fun things that I want to do
Yep,
than worry about all that.
yep.
So, yeah, I'm
Yeah.
thankful for that.
Yeah, well, it's about taking care of your spirit. It's about retaining that
That's right.
childhood innocence. And as I always like to throw out the quote from Charles Bukowski, we're born idiots and buried, or we're born geniuses and buried idiots. And if you can retain, and also what matters the most is how well you walk through the fire. If you can
Yeah.
retain all of those building blocks of doing that,
Mhm.
of doing things. And in our age right now, the beauty of our age is that we didn't have social media and cameras around all the time.
Oh,
So we could do all of that foolery and not
yeah.
have it ever be anything other than a memory that can go into the vapor.
Yeah, Joe, I'm telling you, there were times.
Man,
There was a scavenger hunt in college where I definitely planted my bare booty on a photocopier in the middle of the
yeah,
library in
yeah.
the Northwestern campus. Thank God there's no
Telling
photographic
you.
evidence.
I'm telling you, there's so many things that I did with friends too, where it's like, man, it's
Yeah.
good that we were just feral and free because we didn't need all
Yeah.
that.
Feral and Free is a great name for something. That is the podcast title right there.
There you go.
Yeah.
We'll keep it.
I
Yeah, we'll definitely keep that. Or it could be an album title. It could be a book title. Yeah.
It could be so many things.
Yeah.
You know, it's funny. I mean, I've been thinking a lot about social media lately because it's really in the toilet. It's just,
Yeah, it is.
it's not just the content. It's the fact that like those of us making what I'd like to think are my thoughtful, helpful content, the algorithm just isn't showing my stuff to anyone
No.
anymore. Um, and I have a lot of clients come to me, and part of their struggle is comparisonitis and like thinking about why am I not as good as this person I'm seeing online? And so I think that my life experience has given me some tools to help teach people that social media is just like it's like a grain of sand in the grand scheme of life. Like it is nothing,
Yeah,
you
it
know?
is.
Um, we don't need to compare ourselves to the fraction of the best day that a stranger is having,
I know.
you know?
I know. I have a stepdaughter and see that, and it was just so hard because there was
Oh,
always
man.
woe that would come out of that. But let me ask you
Yeah.
this: if anyone wants to get your books, they want to hire you, they want to reach out, what's the
Yeah.
good business?
Thanks. Yeah. So, CoachJenniGrover.com is where you can find me. So it's Jenny with an I. And I'm on all social media as Coach Jenny Grover. But to be real, I'm not there that often anymore.
Yeah, I
So,
get it.
CoachJenniGrover.com. And also, my book is on Amazon. It's called Chronic Babe 101.
I dig it. See, look at that. You got the title down. This has been delightful. It's so great that we ran into
Thanks,
each
Joe.
other. Thank you
Yeah.
so much for being open, and you're a beautiful spirit. You got it's just so refreshing to see that people are out there just doing what Bjork's doing, kicking ass. So keep doing it.
Thanks, Joe. I'm going to go listen to some Bjork after we finish because I think that is going to just change my day but you've already changed my day. It's so great to hang out with
You
you.
did the
Thank you.
same with absolutely. Yeah. I think I'm gonna put some Bjork. I love that video where she's walking down in the middle of the street. I always think about that. That's you don't
It's oh so quiet.
Oh, so quiet. So good.
Mhm.
I played that on my
Mhm.
jazz show. It's like I just tell him sometimes I'm like I played Moby last week. He did a
Oh, cool.
he has a new album coming out and he did a duet with Jose James and it's so cool. And
Whoa.
anytime I can get one of those musicians that have just a bit of jazz, it's like deal with
Yeah.
it. It's coming
Yeah.
on the show.
I love it. That's why we listen to music, right? To get inspired and get
Yeah,
exposed to different kinds of people. So I love that you're doing that. That's rad.
beautiful. Absolutely. Keep doing the good work, spreading the light.
Okay, thanks, Joe. You
Thank you.
too.
Take care.